Hey guys, it's Aurora with Nidra. Welcome to the new year. Happy New Year. Um, I want to talk about the light and the dark. And when I say dark, I don't mean evil, but the sort of palette of undesirable things that we experience and feel, like anger, grief, sadness, jealousy, um, anything that's along that spectrum. We love, as our culture, to stay above ground, to stay connected to the happiness, the good things, the things that make us feel pleasure. Um, and they have a very real um, place in our lives. However, what I want to address is the darkness. Um, those things do have a place in our lives, and we like to pathologize them. We like to say, oh, there's something wrong if we feel these things, when in fact they are a natural part of life. Just as we have birth and chi moving through everything through life, there's also death, which is the void. And if we look at the void as these places of dark, of our darkness, like the anger, the sadness, the grief, the jealousy, the etc. Fill in the blank. We find that there are actually gifts in that, even as uncomfortable as those places can be to hang out in. What happens when we hang out down there, and generally we don't choose to hang out down there, there are things that trigger us and make us go dark, because we wouldn't stay in the darkness if we had a choice. But what's really wonderful about the dark is that there are gifts that we can get that the light does not afford us. So, for instance, strength. The darkness is actually very expansive. It expands our capabilities. It expands who we are. It's a place where when we do not have our boundaries and our facilities, when we have hit rock bottom, we actually cultivate and bring in more source and more energy into us to expand. So if we're upset about a situation, we're grieving, we're angry, we're sad, we're whatever, it is preparing us. It is fertile soil that is preparing us to be able to handle this circumstance again. So, for instance, in 2014, both of my cats got cancer, and some of you, if you've been watching long enough, have seen me through this. And that was probably one of the most difficult times of my life. I lost one of them. He did not survive the cancer, um, and walking on the edge of life and death with him was really painful. And the reason it was painful was because I had a massive resistance to going there with him. Like, I was not looking at the cycle of life. Like, that is a perspective I gained through his death. Was that I learned I couldn't fight it. Like, when death was coming, I could not fight it. I was not going to win, even as hard as I tried. And I resisted for so long, and I fought so hard for him, that I actually ended up hurting myself. And that time was to go into the darkness, was to be in the darkness and feel all the feelings of the pain and the grief going through that, and not try and fight it. I remember saying to myself, in the end, I did have to euthanize him. And it's an awful decision to have to make. And I remember saying to myself, I never, ever want to have to make this decision again. This year, I had to make that decision twice. And when I did it for his brother, I knew I had garnered the strength from that first experience, of knowing that I wasn't going to fight it. I couldn't fight it. And so that resistance was less. I knew that there was only one decision, one thing we were headed towards, and one decision I was going to have to make. It was just a matter of timing. And with that acceptance, and because I had that first experience with his brother, I grew. I gained lesson. I gained perspective on a situation like that, and I knew when it was time. I didn't fight it. I didn't resist the grief, the pain, the sheer shittiness of the situation. I let it be there. And I did what I had to do, and I was able to move much more gracefully. While the pain was there, I didn't have the pain that the resistance created with it. And then I had to do it again for Ludo, my dog. And that was only 2 months later. I had that much more room because I'd done it twice before, and literally just 2 months prior. I had that much more room to make the call and have a little bit more space to know that it was the right thing to do and it was okay. So each one of these situations that were very painful and excruciating and a place I absolutely did not want to be, it was the dark. By accepting the situations, I was able to have more access to grace and flow and light instead. So we find strength, we find the things that we could not do if we were up here all the time in the darkness, when we are devoid of our light. And that is a beautiful thing. And I think that's something that life just ends up hammering into us in the end. I'm really curious to see what life looks like to me if I make it to an old person. And looking back, because I have a feeling that the amount of grace that is possible at the end of life is much greater than at the beginning. Anyway, Happy New Year. I hope you're well.